There was an engineer in Nagoya who couldn't finish a sentence without checking his cell phone. In the middle of talking to his wife, he looked at the screen. Important meeting with clients. It vibrated in his pocket and he automatically checked it. Dinner with the kids, notification would light up and he would mentally disappear for 20 seconds. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was a Pavlovian reflex so ingrained that he no longer realized he was doing it. Until the day his 7-year-old daughter asked, "Dad, why is your phone more important than me?" And that broke something inside him that had been cracking for years. Distraction is not a modern problem. It's the human condition. Buddha talked about this 2,500 years ago. The mind, he said, is naturally restless, like a monkey jumping from branch to branch without ever staying still. But what has changed in the last 20 years is not the nature of the mind. It was that there are now billions of dollars invested in technology specifically designed to exploit this natural tendency. Algorithms that study you more deeply than you study yourself. Who know exactly what color, sound, word, image will capture your attention and not let go. You're not fighting your own weakness. It's fighting cutting-edge behavioral engineering funded by some of the richest corporations on the planet. And he's losing. But in Japan, there's an ancient tradition of studying exactly this. How to regain control of your attention in a world designed to steal it. And the techniques they developed are more relevant today than at any other time in history. The engineer decided to carry out a radical experiment. A week without a smartphone, not without a cell phone. He bought one of those basic devices that only calls and sends text messages, but no internet, no apps. No colorful notifications competing for every second of consciousness. The first 3 days, it was hell. He would take his phantom cell phone out of his pocket 20 times an hour. Hand automatically went to the place where it used to be. And when it was just empty, there was momentary panic, as if I had lost something essential. Amputated limb that still hurts even though it is no longer there. But on the 4th day, something changed. He was sitting on the train coming home from work. Normally, I would spend those 40 minutes scrolling through endless feeds of content that I would forget 3 seconds after viewing. But now there was only a window. And he looked out. Really looked. He saw details of the city he passed by every day but had never noticed. A small sanctuary between 2 buildings. A tree growing impossibly out of a crack in the concrete. An elderly man practicing Tai Chi in a tiny park. And for the first time in years, he thought a complete thought from beginning to end without interruption. It wasn't deep thought, it was just observation about the architecture of the buildings. But it was his, whole, not fragmented into 1,000 pieces by constant external stimuli. In Zen, there's a concept called Ichigo Ichii, a meeting, an opportunity. It means that each moment is unique and will never repeat itself exactly like that. Therefore, you must be completely present. Not planning next, not dwelling on the previous one, here, now, fully. But how can you be present when your attention is being auctioned off to the highest bidder every millisecond? When you have 15 tabs open in your browser, 7 side conversations going on, music playing, news scrolling, and still trying to do work that requires deep concentration? It cannot. Neurologically impossible. Human brain does not multitask. This is a myth. What it does is very fast task switching. And each switch has a cost. It takes time to disengage from one thing and engage in another. And in this process, quality of attention drops drastically. Studies show that just having a cell phone visible on the table, even when turned off, reduces measurable cognitive performance. Because part of the brain is monitoring that object, prepared in case something happens. You're not consciously thinking about him, but neural resources are being drained nonetheless. So when you think you're focused, but there's a cell phone nearby, you're operating at reduced capacity. Diminished version of yourself, and you don't even realize it because it's normal now. The engineer began to realize this. With a basic cell phone without internet, he suddenly had hours a day that were previously being consumed without leaving a trace. Not big blocks, but 5 minutes here, 3 minutes there, accumulating into several hours of consciousness that were being wasted on meaningless stimulation. And he started to use this time differently, not necessarily productively. Sometimes I just sat and looked out the window. Sometimes I walked aimlessly. Sometimes I would lie on the grass in the park looking at the clouds. People passed by and looked strange. Adult man lying on the grass in the middle of the weekday? You must be unemployed or crazy. But he didn't care, because I was discovering something I had completely forgotten about. This bored air doesn't kill. Boredom is a neutral state. It only feels unbearable when you've been conditioned to need constant stimulation. And on the other side of boredom, when you don't immediately run away, there is something interesting. Genuinely original thoughts begin to appear. Not recycled thoughts from things you've read or seen, but your thoughts. Unprecedented connections. Insights that only emerge when there's enough empty space for them to emerge. In ancient Japan, Zen gardens were designed specifically for this purpose, spaces of apparent emptiness where monks could sit and do absolutely nothing. Look at rocks, see moss grow, watching shadows change as the sun moved. It seems like a grotesque waste of time, and it was, deliberately, because they had understood that constant productivity kills creativity, kills deep. It kills the ability to have thoughts that are not immediately useful but are essential for deeper understanding of reality. Silence, too. Not just auditory silence, but mental silence. Absence of constant internal noise of judgment, planning, worry, comparison. And you don't achieve mental silence by fighting thoughts. The more you try to suppress, the louder they get. It's like trying not to think about pink elephants. Impossible. But you can achieve silence through non-engagement. Thought appears. You notice. Don't follow. Don't analyze. It doesn't build a narrative on top of it. Just, oh, thought. And let it pass, like a cloud in the sky. You don't try to stop the cloud from existing. He doesn't get emotionally involved with her. Just watch it pass by. The engineer started practicing this on the way to work. Instead of filling every second with a podcast or music or news, he would sometimes go in total silence. And he observed his own mind. At first, it was cacophony. Thoughts were racing in all directions. Project concerns. Anger at the comment that a colleague made yesterday. Fantasies about vacation in 3 months. Endless list of things to do. But he didn't fight. I just watched. And after a few weeks, something changed. The thoughts continued, but they lost urgency. They lost the ability to kidnap him completely. He could have anxious thoughts and realize, this is anxiety, it's energy in the body. I don't need to do anything now. You can stay there until it passes. And anxiety passed, faster than when he fed more thoughts or tried to suppress them. This leads to the question of self-control. Problematic word because it implies internal war. You versus impulses. And in war, someone has to lose. But in Zen, it is not about control in the repressive sense. It's about not being controlled. Subtle but fundamental difference. You have the urge to check your cell phone. This is a neurobiological fact. Dopamine being released in anticipation of possible reward. It is not a moral failure, it's conditioning. But you don't need to act on every impulse. You can see there is momentum. Interesting. Where do you feel it on your body? What is the quality of the sensation? How does it change when you do nothing? And when you observe like this, with genuine curiosity rather than judgment, the impulse loses steam, because impulses live on automaticity. When you bring awareness, you break automatic circuitry. Not always, not perfectly. Sometimes impulse wins. But each time you practice observing without acting automatically, you strengthen your ability to choose. And choice is freedom. Not freedom to never have impulses, but freedom not to be completely enslaved by them. The engineer clearly noticed this one night. I was having dinner with family. Basic cell phone was on silent mode in the room, and he felt a massive urge to get up and check, even though I knew that cell phone had nothing interesting to show. The push wasn't about content. It was about escape. Family dinner required presence. It required really listening when my son talked about school. It required being there when there was uncomfortable silence between courses, and part of him wanted to escape this discomfort. I always wanted to. But first, there was a perfect excuse. Cell phone, important message, urgent work. Now there was no excuse, and it stayed. With the discomfort, with silence, with the required presence. And something extraordinary happened. After about 10 minutes of discomfort, he relaxed, and he actually heard his son talking, and he found it genuinely interesting. Not in a forced way, but because he was truly present for the first time in months, and when his wife told him about her day, he wasn't planning his next sentence as she spoke. I was just listening. And he noticed things in her expression that he had never noticed before. Micro-expressions of concern that she hid well, but not perfectly. And he asked, "Is there something worrying you?" And she started talking about something she had been holding back for weeks because he never seemed really willing to listen. And they had a conversation. Real talk. Does not exchange basic information, but genuine connection. And then, when he lay down to sleep, he realized he felt different, more full. As if the day had actually been lived rather than just survived. In Zen Buddhism, there's a practice called kinhin, walking meditation. You walk extremely slowly. Each step takes maybe 5 seconds, and you're completely present with every movement. Foot lifting, air coming in, foot moving, air coming out, foot going down, air coming in. To the modern Western mind, this seems like torture. Why would someone walk so slowly, so inefficient, so unproductive? But efficiency is not the goal. Presence is. Because you can go through life in maximum efficiency mode and come to the end realizing you were never really there. I was always moving on to the next place, next goal, next achievement, but never here. And here is the only place where life happens. Not in the past that once was, not in the future, which isn't yet, but here, now, in this step, this breath, this moment. The engineer started practicing this, not formally, not walking super slow in public, but bringing full attention to worldly activities, brush teeth, feel bristles, paste flavor, hand movement, sound of water. Instead of mentally being on to the next thing while your body brushes on autopilot, wash dishes, water temperature, foam texture, the weight of each dish, precise cleaning movement. And what he discovered was surprising. These activities that I considered boring became almost meditative when done with full attention, not because they became intrinsically interesting, but because total presence has its own quality that transcends specific content. And side effect? He made everything better, not because I was trying, but because full attention naturally results in superior execution. When you are truly present while listening to someone, you hear things you would miss if you were simultaneously planning your response. When you are fully focused on the task, you complete it faster and with higher quality than if you were divided between 5 things. It seems obvious, but most people live doing the opposite, trying to do everything at once and wondering why you feel exhausted without having actually completed anything well. After 6 months with a basic cell phone, the engineer made a definitive choice. It didn't go back to smartphones. He bought a computer to use at home when he needed internet, but mobile remained a simple device. Friends thought it was extreme. Family thought it was strange at first, but he didn't care. Because I had recovered something precious that I didn't even know I had lost. Sustained attention span, ability to be bored without needing immediate salvation, ability to sit with discomfort without automatically running away. And these capabilities changed everything. Not in a way that I could easily quantify, but qualitatively. Life had more texture, more depth, more meaning. And ironically, he was more productive because when he worked, he really worked. No interruptions. Solid blocks of deep concentration that produced results in hours that previously took days of fragmented work. And he slept better because it wasn't stimulating the nervous system until the minute before trying to sleep. And relationships improved because when I was with people, I was really there. He didn't become an enlightened monk. I still had bad days. I was still frustrated. I still felt anxiety. But there was space. And in that space, I had a choice. And choice changed everything. You don't need to abandon your smartphone to regain attention, but you need to recognize that you are in battle, and that losing this battle means losing the essence of what makes human life rich. So maybe start small. 1 hour a day without screens, or first thing in the morning, or last hour of the night, and watch what happens. Discomfort will come, urgent to check, fear of missing something. But stick with it, just observing, without judging, no running away. And on the other side of that discomfort, you might find something you were looking for in all the wrong places. Silence, presence, yourself, patiently waiting for you to stop being distracted and finally come home.